Butter. Smooth, golden, and delicious on basically everything from toast to popcorn. But butter also has a sworn rival, margarine. And if you've ever heard the story, margarine's history isn't just about being a cheaper butter substitute. At one point, it was supposedly dyed pink. Yes, pink. Imagine spreading a Barbie doll-colored smear on your breakfast toast. But was margarine really once dyed pink? Or is that just one of those weird food legends we tell each other, like the one about Twinkies lasting forever? Let's dig into this colorful history of butter's arch nemesis, right here on History of Food. The story starts in 1869 in France, when Emperor Napoleon III wanted a cheap butter alternative for his soldiers and poor citizens. Butter was pricey and spoiled quickly, so a contest was held to invent something new. Enter Hippolyte Maurice, a chemist who created oleomargarine by blending beef fat, milk, and water. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Soon, margarine spread beyond France into other countries, where manufacturers began experimenting with vegetable oils instead of animal fat. By the late 1800s, margarine was cheap, shelf-stable, and ready to rival butter. Butter producers, however, were not thrilled. In fact, they were furious. Think of this as one of the first major food wars in history. Butter had been around for centuries. It was tradition, culture, and pride all churned into one creamy block. Margarine, on the other hand, was the scrappy newcomer stealing market share. So the butter lobby went on the offensive. In the U.S., dairy farmers pressured lawmakers to make margarine less appealing, both literally and figuratively. And this is where things get colorful. From the beginning, margarine was naturally white, and while white is fine for sneakers or bathroom tiles, it's not exactly appetizing when you're expecting something golden like butter. So margarine producers started adding yellow coloring to mimic butter. This drove the butter industry wild. They argued it was deceptive, basically culinary fraud. To them, margarine wasn't just competition, it was imposter butter. By the 1880s, laws were passed in several U.S. states banning yellow margarine. Manufacturers were even taxed for selling colored margarine. But here's where things got especially weird. In some places, instead of just banning yellow coloring, lawmakers actually required margarine to be dyed pink. So did people really spread pink margarine on their toast? Yes and no. Some U.S. states passed laws in the late 1800s and early 1900s requiring margarine to be dyed an unappetizing color, most famously pink. The idea was simple. If margarine looked disgusting, nobody would want to eat it. Other states suggested shades of red, brown, or even black. It was like the government was trying to turn margarine into a practical joke. However, not every state enforced it, and the margarine industry fought back in court. The Supreme Court actually ruled in 1898 that forcing margarine to be dyed pink was unconstitutional, calling it an unfair attack on the product. So while some people did encounter pink margarine, it wasn't the universal experience the legend sometimes makes it sound like. Even when yellow coloring was banned, margarine producers found loopholes. One clever trick was to sell margarine in a plain white block with a little packet of yellow dye or a dye capsule. Consumers would take it home, knead the packet into the margarine, and voila! Yellow margarine that looked just like butter. Imagine buying a food product today and having to mix in your own color at the kitchen table. It was part meal prep, part arts and crafts. Kids apparently loved squishing the packets, though parents probably weren't thrilled about greasy yellow fingers all over the walls. The butter lobby didn't stop at colors. They pushed for federal taxes on margarine, too. In 1886, The US government slapped a 2-cent tax on every pound of margarine and charged manufacturers hefty license fees. That might not sound like much now, but back then it made margarine noticeably more expensive. And guess what? The strategy worked. Butter stayed dominant for decades while margarine was painted, sometimes literally, as the cheap, shady cousin you didn't invite to dinner. The tide turned during World War II. Butter was rationed and Americans needed alternatives. Margarine, cheap, available, and increasingly made with vegetable oils, stepped in. By then, coloring bans had relaxed, and yellow margarine became the norm. After the war, many households were stuck with it. Butter still had its fans, of course, but margarine had carved out a permanent place in the American kitchen. Still, margarine couldn't shake its fake reputation. For much of the 20th century, food writers mocked it, chefs avoided it, and butter commercials ran victory laps around it. Butter was natural, margarine was processed. In the mid-20th century, margarine finally gained a boost from health trends. Butter was high in saturated fats, while margarine, made from vegetable oils, was marketed as heart-healthy. For a while, margarine was seen as the healthier option. Then trans fats were discovered and margarine's reputation tanked again. Basically, margarine has had more ups and downs than a soap opera character. So, back to the pink question. Yes, there really was pink margarine, but it was more of a legal tactic than a nationwide standard. The very idea of pink margarine, though, stuck in the cultural imagination. It's such a bizarre image that people still bring it up today, long after the laws were repealed. It's the perfect example of how far industries will go when money and pride are on the line. The butter lobby wanted to protect its turf, and if that meant making margarine look like a strawberry milkshake gone wrong, so be it. Fast forward to today, and margarine is still around, though it doesn't have the dominance it once did. Butter has staged a comeback, thanks to the real food movement, celebrity chefs, and TikTok trends. Margarine now markets itself more subtly. Plant-based spreads, vegan butters, and so on. No pink dye required. And while the butter versus margarine war isn't nearly as dramatic as it once was, the history behind it is a reminder of how weird food politics can get. After all, few other products have ever been legally forced to dress up in bubblegum pink just to make their competition look better. So, was margarine once dyed pink? Absolutely, but not everywhere, not forever, and not because anyone thought pink toast looked chic. It was a weapon in a long, strange battle between butter and margarine. A battle fought with lobbyists, taxes, court cases, and, yes, food coloring. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.